Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my introduction video for the Django Girls Extensions assignment. Okay, so in the previous week, we worked on the Django Girls tutorial, and that's the tutorial that they typically do in their one-day workshop. The Django Girls organization, and then they send people home and they suggest that they work on these extension tutorials. And so let's go take a look at those, because that's what we're doing this week, the extensions. Okay, so I'm going to click on the link for the Django Girls extensions page, and here we are. I'll make that a little bigger. Okay. And as it really turns out, in fact, they characterize these as homework, because even the people who go to their one-day on-site workshop are doing this on their own. Okay, just like you're going to be doing. So, what parts of this are we going to do? Well, we're going to do the first part, homework, add more to your website. And we're going to do the second part, homework, secure your website. And very last, we're going to do homework, create comment model. Okay. We're not going to go so far as to do this optional one where we configure our Django installation to work with a database other than SQLite 3, and that's primarily because it's a bit of a tall order. I'll leave that for you to do on your own, and also Postgres isn't available for free on Python Anywhere, so we're definitely not going to do there. The optional domain we're not going to do, because we're not going to create a domain. We're just going to leave this deployed at Python Anywhere. And the optional deploy your website on Heroku, we're not going to do that, although that might be something you'd want to do on your own someday, because Heroku is another free and then later inexpensive site to deploy Django applications on. And even the free version, as I recall, has a Postgres, has got some amount of storage for your database on Postgres. Okay, so at this point we're not going to do that. So we're going to do the first three. I guess we'll also do whatever's on the introduction. Oh, this is the introduction page, and we'll do the other three. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this. These web pages to kind of walk through what I'm going to be looking for when you get your project finished. Okay, so what are we going to do now? Well, let's take a look at my finished version of the extensions. Okay, so I'm going to go down and click on PyCharm. And I'm waiting for that to fire up. It seems to be firing up on another monitor. Okay, so let's bring this over here. And the first thing you're going to notice is I have another project. I had my Django Girls project, and now I have a Django Girls extensions project. And that's because I wanted to keep them separate. Okay, it's not particularly as important for you to do that. Okay, so in fact, when you deploy your version of the extensions, I want you to deploy them to the same place. So it's almost easier for you to not create a second project, not create a second Git repository, not create a second repository on the remote server. Okay. I think it's going to make sense for you to just keep working on your Django girls. I think what you do want to do is you do want to make sure that you've committed all your changes for the normal Django girls tutorial. So you have a place to go back to. So that's a long-winded way of saying that even though I have a second project here and I have a second copy of everything, I'm not going to recommend it to you. I think it's just unnecessary work. Okay, so I'm going to click on my Django Girls extensions, and it's going to fire up. And it fired up on another monitor. I've got 3 monitors here. And the best one for recording these videos is my laptop screen. So that's how I do that. Turns out that the quality is a little better for you. Okay. There we are. So we're on the Django Girls extensions. What are we going to look at? Well, what I want to do is I want to show you how my application works. I've gone all the way to the end of what I'm going to ask you guys to do. And what I'm going to do is to show you that application and then kind of walk you through it as I walk you through the website. Now, have I installed it at Python Anywhere? No, I haven't yet. Why? Well, because you're still working on the original Django Girls tutorial, and I'd like you to be able to go to my deployment and see how that works, because that, I think, meets all the requirements, and then we're fine. So in our next week, when you're working on the extensions, I'm going to go and I'm going to take down the original version, and I'm going to deploy this extensions project. So while you're working, if you want to compare to this, you can. Okay, but for right now, this is what we're doing. Okay, good. So when we're doing this, how do we test? Well, I would say that while you're working on this next tutorial, and when you're really working on any project, you probably want to use PyCharm and the development server, which we'll show you again, until you're ready to deploy. Okay, you can generally test anything you want right here on your own computer. Okay, in the meantime, that's going to give me enough time to go to Python Anywhere and grade your submission of the Python Girls tutorial. When you finally get the extensions tutorials done, then you can go and pull down the updates to your server on Python Anywhere. Okay, and when you do that, then I'll be able to see that. Okay. Now, because these things build on each other, it's not the end of the world if I go to grade your first assignment and you've already deployed your second. Obviously, if your second works, I'll be fine. Okay? And I can look at the code from your first, so we'll be fine. Okay, let's just take a look at this. So let's crank up the development server So we go up to Tools, Run Manage Pi task. All right, and that we see that down in the bottom here. And this whole data sources detected thing, I'd like to not worry about right now. So this event log, I'd really like to be able to hide, but I'm not sure how to hide it. So I'm just going to make it a lot smaller, okay? And here on my manage.py, I'm going to do a run server. And you see how I get auto completion, and I can say that. And as long as you want to run it on the regular port, you don't have to worry about a port number. So we're just going to hit enter again. And it's going to open it up. And we're going to see where we are. Okay. So one of the interesting things here is that, of course, I have the whole solution here, including the logging in and logging out functionality. So you can see that I'm logged in as test user, okay? And this is kind of sticky. Now this is, again, you know, we're doing the Django Girls tutorials in the first 2 weeks. And, you know, we don't get to really cover the nuances of something like access and authentication, okay? Before we get done with our course, we're not going to want access and authentication to be sticky like this, okay? So, for instance, if we have a user who's logged in, okay, and they forgot to log out and they shut their browser, we're not going to want them to be logged in forever, okay? That's probably not going to make sense to us. So we're going to have a more robust solution than we get from the Django Girls extension, but not anytime soon, like weeks and weeks away, all right? So I'm just going to log out here, and we're going to see that when we're logged out, we're not going to see that. Okay. So you'll see that I have an empty blog here. Okay, good. Now, eventually, I'm going to want to log in. Okay, let's try to log in. So once you add the functionality where you're able to log in, you click on this, I guess this is a lock icon. Okay, and you get a username and a password. So, okay, so we've got a username. I want all of us to have a username of test user, so we can all go to each other's implementation and play with it a bit. So if I log in as test user, I'm going to be fine. Now, something happens to me all the time. I'll be away for a week or two and I'll forget sometimes the name of my user, but very often my password. Okay, and so let's say I forgot my password. Okay, so I put in, I start guessing, and I go to log in, and it keeps saying, "Oh, that didn't work." Okay. Now this is I think the second of the homework tutorials where we add this functionality. Okay, we'd have the same problem if we were logging in. Before we start this, we're trying to log in with admin. Do you remember that? So if we just go to admin, right? And it says, oh, log in. So if we say test user, and I'll put in something like I forgot, and we get the same problem, right? Okay. Now, I have discovered a new way to save ourselves here, and I just wanted to show you that. there's a command that we can use on our development server or whatever server we have to change the password of a user. Isn't that just what we need? Okay. So how would I do this? Well, I'm going to close the browser. Okay. And I'm going to go down to this development server. And one of the good things about the development server is this. If you change your code, the development server will incorporate it into the version that's running on the development server. So when you're working along in PyCharm, well, that's just fine. You don't need to stop and restart the server that often. Problem is, here we are in the window where we get to manage Py, and we want to issue a command, and it's not listening for commands anymore because it's running the server. And even though the comments here say to quit the server, use the Control-C, I can't get Control-C to work. I'm doing that over and over again here. And also, when I Google this issue, I find that other people can't seem to get it to work either. So normally, when we stop PyCharm, okay, it will stop the server process as well. Now, sometimes we just have to go up to PyCharm and close it. Okay. And in the Mac version, you have to close both of these. Okay. And sometimes, if we don't get a message that says, oh, we're trying, do you want to stop a process that's running? It probably means it's stopped the process all by itself. It has stopped the development server. There are times we'll get a little dialog box that'll pop up. You say, do we want to stop it? And say yes, because we do want to stop it. Okay. In my experience, this is the only way to stop the development server once you've started it under PyCharm. Okay. Now, somebody's going to discover a way to stop it without having to do this kind of clunky thing. And when I find out, I'm going to share it with everybody. All right. So let's go back in. Let's crank up PyCharm again so we can issue a manage.py command before we start the server. Okay. So here's the Django Girls Extensions project. I'm just going to click on that. And it's going to fire it up. Okay, and I want to start up the manage.py console again. So I'm going to go up to the menu and say Tools, Run manage.py task. And there it is again. Okay. And it turns out that there is a command change password. Change, and there we have the autocompletion says change password, and then they want to know change password. Come on, and then we want the name of the user, so test user. Okay, and you'll remember that we've come up with this memorable password SOIS secret. SOISSECRET, and we're going to put in it again, SOIS secret, and there we are. It says okay, it changed the file. So now we want to run server again, so run server, that's just fine. And so the server's going, and we'll just use the link here to bring up our browser. And again, you guys probably don't have all this in your application yet, so that's fine. But if you go to admin and you wanted to log in, you could put the test user, and you could say so a secret, and you'd be there. Okay. And then if we go back to just the URL for the main site, you can see that we're logged in. Okay? And right now we're going to log out. Okay, so this is a problem that I have every time I go to test the application. I tend to forget the name of the user, or I forget the password, and I wanted to put you in the position to recover if that happens to you. Okay, so let's go and find our Django Girls tutorial again. So I'm going to pull a browser here, pull one over. And since on my machine, the one that pops up automatically when I click on the link, since that's Safari, I'm going to open up Chrome so I don't keep clobbering the browser every time I open something up. So I'm just going to go back to our weekly schedule, and I'm going to open up the link to the Django Girls extension page, and I'm going to walk through it a bit, and then when we see functionality, we're going to take care of it. So functionality, add more to your website. So let's take a look at that page. So let's see what we're gonna have. Before, every time we added a post, it was automatically published. Well, it's sort of implied that it was going to be published. So we're going to save new posts as drafts. So it's going to be a second step. Okay, you're going to have to be logged in to create a post. And then when you create the post, it's not going to be published. So we're going to need a page to list the unpublished posts. Okay. And we're going to need a button to publish the post. And once we publish the post, if we go back to the main page, which we get to by going to Django Girls, we're going to see our post even there. Everybody's going to be able to see it, whether we're logged in or not. And we're going to be able to delete a post when we're logged in, whether it's been published or not. Are we going to be able to unpublish a post? Unfortunately not. Okay? It's not part of the functionality. And that's where we are when we're at the end of this first tutorial leg. Homework, add more to your website. So let's just see how that works when you get it working. Okay, so I'm going to shrink this, and I'm going to go back to the application. And as you can see, I haven't posted anything here. And I don't seem to be able to do anything in terms of creating content without logging in, because only people who are logged in can create posts. So I'm going to log in as my good friend test user, and I'm going to give him the SOAS secret password. Okay, and that's a part of my infrastructure there. So now you can see we're logged in. And we've got this capability, at least in the final version. The way you create a new post is with the plus icon. So you click on the plus icon. You probably don't have this edit icon quite yet, but so you click on the post, and I'm just going to say this is our first post, and I'm going to say number 1. Okay. And as you can see, my page turned out a little bit different than yours in that I think at least on the final version, it turned out a little bit different than they showed on the website from the Django girls. I think the buttons on the screenshot that you see are over on the right, and the buttons on mine wound up over on the left. And is that because I screwed up the CSS or something like that? It's possible. Okay, but this is not a course in CSS, and this is nice enough, so that's okay. So this is unpublished, okay? Well, how can I tell it's unpublished? Well, if I just go up to Django Girls blog, okay, I don't see it, okay? Well, how do I see the page where I can look at the posts and I can edit them? Well, I go to this icon here with the pencil, and I get a list of the posts that I'm able to edit. And you can see that this is created, but it hasn't been published. So if I click on this, now I go down to a pretty close place where either I can publish, I can edit, or we haven't added the delete yet. Okay. Notice there's a place down here to add comments. That's part of the next tutorial. Okay. So if I publish here, I'm fine, or I could change it. So I can change it. Just add it really is the first, and save it. And here I am. I see that content. It's still not published. So I've done the edit. You don't have the X for the delete yet, but we'll get to that. If I publish it, okay, we see the date that it's been published now. And if I go up and I click on the main title, Django Girls blog, yeah, so now in the page that everybody sees, logged in or not, you can see that this has been published. Okay. Okay, great. This is about where you should be, and stuff like comments and all that. You probably don't have that yet because we haven't added the comment capability. That's in a further round. Okay. All right. So let's shrink this, and let's take a look at our Chrome browser here, where I've got the Django Girls site. Okay. Oh, so when we get to the end of that, we do have the delete. I'm sorry. So there we have the delete. So let's just go look at, let's take a look at that again. If I go back here, at this point I can either edit or delete. And if I want to delete this, I can. So, to get to this point, I've got to be logged in. If I was just a non-logged in user, I would never see this icon. And this is a typical way to control who can run which of the use cases associated with the application. If I'm a user who can run this use case where I can either edit the post or publish the post, it's already been published so we don't see it, or delete it, then I'm going to see the icon to get there. If not, people who are not logged in, they don't even see this icon. Okay? And that's a typical way that we handle different users having different authority, different access authorization. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete it. And now it's gone here. And if we go back to Django Girls blog, well, that's gone too. So let's add a couple. Oh, sorry. Let's add this one here. Let's go call it post number 2. The second one. Second post. Save it. Okay. And why don't we publish it and go back up, and there it is. And let's make it. Let's click on this plus sign, new post. Call it post number 3, the third one. Save that. And again, we're going to publish that too. So if we go up to Django Girls blog, we actually have post number 2 and post number 3 are there. And if we log out, which we should probably do, we can see that we don't have all the capabilities that we had before, but still, the page that we can see, the main page, we can see the content on the main page. So that's what yours should be doing at this point. Okay, so let's take a look at the next part. Okay, secure your website. So among other things, okay, whenever you finish whenever you hit a point in your work that you can easily identify, like well, for me, anytime I add a capability, I commit my work to the repository, okay? And I typically push it up to the remote repository too. So at the very end of this first tutorial, you should be making sure that you commit your work, so you have a commit that represents that point, okay, and that you push it to the remote. Okay, we're not going to pull it down to the deployment place yet, but so that's fine. So if in fact you wanted to get back to, let's say we got to a horrible point in trying the next one, and we wanted to just get back to the point where we just finished, add more to your website. Well, we could go back and we could go back using something like a source tree and go back to that commit and say, I want to restore the state of this repository to that commit. And we could start the second one all over again. If you don't have the commit, there's nothing to go back to. Okay? So, securing the website. So what all we're doing? So we want to authorize the add and the edit of posts. So we want to make sure you can only do it if it's properly authorized. We want to log in users. Okay. Before we were using the login screen from going to the admin function. Okay. We want to improve the layout a bit. Okay. We want to do a little bit more about authenticated users. And then we're done. And again, when I come to the bottom of this, and I have it, when I come to the bottom of this, I typically want to commit. And then I want to make sure when I'm testing it, if I fix things, I want to make sure that when I've got this working, I do another commit to make sure that I have a commit point to go back to that is this tutorial all done and working. Okay, so let's look at how the the functionality that you've added here should be behaving. So let's go back to Safari. Okay. And again, this is where you have all this login capability. So if we click on here, we're able to log in. So we're not going to log in the way that we used to log in. So let's see, test user. So a secret and log in. Okay. And so by the time we get down here, we are going to be putting the name of the logged in user up here. We are going to have a logout link, and we are going to have the two icons, one to add a post and the other to get into the editable list of posts. Okay, so let's go into the editable list of posts. I'm going to click on the edit icon. And I don't seem to have them here. That's interesting. A Django Girls blog. Okay, let's try this. Let's click on post number 2. And okay, I can edit it like that. Okay, that makes sense. And then let's go back and let's go to post number 3, and I can edit that here. Okay. So let's go back to Django Girls blog. Let's say that we want to add it. We want to add another one. Okay. And we've got title next post, and have it say something like, yep, this is the next one. And then we've got that. And again, we can only do this if we're logged in at this point. Now, probably the last version that I showed you, I was kind of demonstrating this logged in capability before we had actually built it. So I'm kind of re-demonstrating it here. But when you finally get this working, again, you should be able to publish, edit, or delete it. Okay? But not if you're not logged in. Okay? So as soon as we log out, interestingly, it takes us back to the main page. Okay? So we're not on that page where we're able to manipulate those things. And also, you can see on the main page we don't have the next post because it was never published. So we can go back to the login and log in again. Test user. So a secret. And we log in. And sorry about that. Let's go here to this edit icon. And here's one that's ready to be edited. And if we click on it, now we're going to get the stuff that we need. Okay, so we can publish it here. Let's publish it. And let's go up to the main page, the Django Girls blog, to see that the next post is already here. So we're getting pretty good behavior out of this. And I would just want to finish up with a logout. Okay? And you'll notice we have some stuff for comments here, but we really haven't added the comment capability. That comes in the next part. Okay, so let's look at the part of the tutorial that does the comment. This is the last one that we're doing. Homework, create comment model. Okay. And a couple of things. One is to remember that this system that we have has two of these Django apps. We have one that's called, let's refresh our memory. We have one that's called, we've got one that's called blog. That's the one we've been working in. Okay. And we've got another one that's been called Django Girls. Nope. So let's just take a look at models.py. Okay. Okay, comment models. So, no, we do have the posts and the comments in the same model. So I misremembered. There's a blog that we do in the Django Unleashed book, and it's spread out over two apps, and I got it confused. So I apologize for that. Okay, so that's where you're going. You're working in models under blog. This is our main app, blog. Okay, and so what are you going to be doing? Well, you're going to be working in here. Before this, we had the model for the post, and during this, we create the model for the comment. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go back and look at the. Let's go back and look at the instructions. So here's the code that we put into models to get the job done. Then they have us doing some stuff, making comments visible. Okay. You can see that we have controlled the visibility of the comments in the final version. Let your readers write comments. Okay. And moderating your comments. So not all comments should be displayed. As a blog owner, you probably want the option to approve or delete comments. So let's do something about that, so that kind of publishing model that we had for posts, well, we're going to take that kind of thought and apply that to comments. Okay. And so as a logged in user, it's only when you've approved the comments that, again, that they're published. Okay? And then again, we're going to come to the end of this. We're going to commit our changes. I always like to immediately push them up to the remote repository so I don't forget. And then you're going to do your testing. And when you're done with your testing, if you've made any changes, then you need to commit again so that you've got a commit point that's right at the end of this assignment. Okay. Let's go and take a look at the application itself and how it's going to function. So here, we're not logged in. Okay. And we don't have any comments. We're just a normal Joe Blow everyday user. So let's click on comments, and there aren't any, but we can add a comment. So we can say who the author is. I'm just going to say Joe Blow user. I hope you like my comment, and send. Okay. And you'll notice here we're on post number 2, but we're not showing the comment yet. Why? Well, it's not approved yet. Okay. And if we go back to the Django Girls blog page, what's interesting is we do show that there is one comment. Right. This is a improvement opportunity for the app. Okay, so at this point we do show there's one comment, and if you click through, there are no comments. uh, uh, and that's the way that you and I can see implicitly we've got one unapproved comment. Okay. All right, could we approve it or delete it? Well, let's create a second one here that we can delete. So we click on that, add a comment. So let's call this angry follower, and so let's just say something angry. You are a bad person and I hate you. Okay, it might not be something that we would want to approve for our site, if only because it gives a bad vibe. Okay, so let's go back to Django Girls blog. Okay, this is what the unlogged in users see. So there's one comment on post number 2. It hasn't been approved yet, as we know. No comments on post 3. One comment on next post, but of course you can't see that because it hasn't been approved either. So let's go, why don't we log in, and then we'll do a little moderating of the posts and we'll see how that goes. So log in as our famous test user with SOAS secret as our password and get rid of that thing. Okay, so let's go to post 1. Let's see if we just go here. I forget what happens here. We just go there, we don't get anything. Okay, so that's not a good spot. It would be nice if we could see all of our moderation opportunities, but that would be a nice add-on feature now, wouldn't it? So let's go to the comments here. And as we can see, which says, I hope you like my comment. We can do one of two things. We can either delete or accept. Okay, so the check mark is a shorthand for accept it. So I hope you like my comment. Well, it's kind of mundane, but it's not harmful, so I'm going to accept. Okay, so let's go back to the main page. And we can see comments 1. And when we click through, we actually do see the comment, and it doesn't have any moderation controls. So what's kind of interesting here, and it has to do with the state of the sophistication of an application. You can build this fast. What about something that you had approved before and have had second thoughts about? There are no controls to yank it now. Once you approve it, it's gone. Okay, is that a robust application? No, but again, we're doing this pretty quickly and we're trying to get points on the board. Okay, and would we want more functionality eventually? Yeah, I think we would. Okay, let's go back to the main page and let's go down to next post. All right, and here's a comment. And it says, you are a bad person, I hate you. Let's delete that with the X. And it says no comments here yet, so it's gone. And then let's go up to the main page, and you can see there are no comments here now. All right. So let's see what we would see if we were not logged in. Well, let's just log out. Okay, go to Django Girls blog. Okay. Which is where we were. And let's see, we only have comments on the first one, and we go down, and it's there. I hope you like my comment. So is this a very robust application? Well, no, probably not yet. But for something that we built in with a couple of tutorials for beginners, I think this is a pretty rich application that we've learned a lot from. And to the extent that maybe things like the logging in is kind of sticky, and maybe you don't get to moderate things once you approve them, you don't get to subsequently delete comments. Those are just things that are going to give us the motivation for the main part of the course, where we learn about a lot more about Django than you can do in a few quick tutorials, and we learn how to build more robust and sophisticated features into the apps that we're going to be working with. Okay, so that's what I want you to do. Now, let's just talk a little bit about how you're going to deploy this. Okay, so how would you do this? Well, here's how I think it's going to work for you. Let's bring up yet another browser. Well, you know what we can do? Let's bring up the Chrome browser where we are. Okay, so this is as far as we're going. Okay, we're not going to do the optional PostgreSQL installation. They teach you PostgreSQL here because of the fact that it's a popular relational database with Django users. Most sites also support MySQL. Okay, but we're not going to do it. They also teach it because they would like you to deploy. They have you working up to deploying on Heroku, and Heroku is another free and then reasonable site like Python Anywhere, and Heroku is very oriented towards PostgreSQL. But we're not going to do this. Let's come away from this tutorial and let's go find Python Anywhere. So we're going to Python Anywhere, and here I'm already logged into my dashboard. Okay. And what do I have currently running? Okay, well, I've currently got running the first version of the tutorial, the one from the prior week. Okay, now how can I see what I've got going? Well, I can just go to my username, trainerk.pythonanywhere.com, and it's going to bring up my app, perhaps a bit slowly, but that's where we left it the last time. Okay, now that's where you guys should be. You probably will have done a little bit more testing, and maybe I'll have done some testing on it too. All right, so what do you have to do to get where you want to go? Well, let's go back to our dashboard. Okay. So first of all, are we going to have another web application? So let's just go to the web tab. And I'm going to say no, because if you have a free account, as soon as when you go to add a second web app, it would be nice, but they're going to say on the beginner plan, read the free plan, you can only have one web app deployed. Okay, so what are we going to do to go from web app to web app? Well, eventually we're going to delete one of the older web app, and then we're going to deploy a new web app. We don't have to worry about that this week, because you, at least I hope, will have continued to build these additional features into the same project that you had, so it's in the same repository. So all we really need to do is we need to refresh the code that is on the Python Anywhere server. Okay, so how would you do that? Oh, you do something like this. You would go back to your dashboard. Okay. And how do you refresh what's on your server? Well, you're going to have to go to the console that's running your well, you're going to have to go to the console to get access to your code. Okay, and it'll take a little bit to fire that up. Okay, so let's do an ls to see the directory. Oh, and there's my first blog. This is what hopefully yours is still called. So let's change directory to my first blog. Okay. Okay, and then let's do, it turns out this is a Git repository. Well, how do we know? We can see with this master here. Okay. Fine. So let's do a Git status. Okay. And here it says that my branch is up to date with Origin master. Well, that's because I haven't changed that. Okay. When you do that, it's going to say that there are changes that have been pushed to the remote repository. That's this Origin master. Okay. And so it's going to say that the version that you have in this local repository are different than the one at the remote repository, which is called Origin. Well, then how would you get the changes down? Well, you do it with a pull. So you would say git pull origin. Okay, so this fires up the Git program. This is the function that you want to do. You want to pull changes from a remote repository. What's the name origin? Origin is the classic name that we give to a remote repository. Okay, so if we followed the normal life cycle for Git projects and repositories, at this point our remote repository is called Origin, and what's going to happen is you're going to hit return. Okay, so come out here and hit enter. Okay, and what I get is already up to date, but what you're going to get is that you're going to get a bunch of stuff that says that we're bringing stuff down from the remote repository. Okay, and you'll see what files have changed and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you say at this point, if you were to say git pull origin a second time, you would get the already up to date, because when the pull is done, your copy of the master branch and the one that's on the remote repository, which has the name origin, they agree. They're up to date with each other. So, okay, have you done everything that you need to change how this application is going to run on your deployed production server? Well, not yet. Well, why not? Well, because we're running a production server, not a development server. So simply changing the underlying code on a production server is not enough. We need to restart it. Well, how do we do that? Well, let's get out of our console with the back arrow, and let's go over to web. Okay. And you can see that we have one web server, trainerkpythonanywhere.com. Yours is going to have your ID. Click on that. Okay, and you'll remember this. You'll also remember that at a certain point we reloaded. So let's just reload. Click reload. No. So what's happening here? It is stopping the production server and starting it again. And when that happens, it's going to see the new version of your code. So then when you go to your to access your web server as a user, so your ID, mine's trainerk.pythonanywhere.com, then you should see the new functionality now. Now, of course, I haven't changed mine yet because the week isn't up yet, but I will change mine. Now, it's going to be a little bit harder for me. I've used a different repository. So am I going to be able to just pull down the changes? No. In fact, I'm going to have to do an install like the install that we did in the last tutorial. So what I'm really going to do, since I have a whole other install to do, I'm going to go to the Django Girls tutorial, the first one that we did, and I'm just going to go to the deploy phase again, and I'm going to do it all over again. Okay. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm probably going to have to go to my web application and actually delete it, and so you can actually delete them. You click on this, and I think it says, do you really want to do this? And you can say, yeah, I really want to do this. Okay. And then I'm going to have to go back and do a new deployment. But you're not going to have to, because you're just going to be pulling down the new version that you've already tested on your own machine. And now it's going to be at the point where I'm able to grade it. Okay? All right. Well, I think you're ready to have a lot of fun on this. As you can see, when you're done, you've got a pretty realistic application. Again, it doesn't have maybe every robust aspect that we would like it to have, but we need motivation to take the rest of the course. If it were perfect now, it would be time to drop the course and say, gosh, wasn't this fun for 3 weeks? But we're going to have a lot to learn, and that's going to allow us to do things like turn applications like this into more robust and more real-world applications. Okay, you got plenty to do, so I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.